What's up, everybody? Welcome into another edition of SSPN Postgame. Uh, Big Spurs Ethan, 139 to 103. But just before
Mm.
we get into anything, at halftime, I was watching the Monday Night Football game and saw the DeMar Hamlin situation. If you haven't, just go on Twitter or Google it, and you can find all about it. But the latest tweet from a Cincinnati news reporter says he has a pulse. And just watching that situation, that's a good thing. So just wanted to start off by saying prayers to him and his family.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Good luck to him. Scary situation.
Definitely. But we'll get into our recap of tonight's Spurs game, 139 to 103 against the Brooklyn Nets. This makes it a 12-game win streak, for Brooklyn. And really, since they've put Jacques Vaughn in that position, they've just been clicking. I mean, this is the team that we expected when KD and Kyrie first signed to the Nets, and we saw a pure example of that tonight in their rout of the Spurs.
Yeah, they look really good. When they're making their shots like they were tonight, they look very difficult to stop. I mean, Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant doing what they do with 25 and 27 apiece on efficient shooting. Kyrie could not miss from three-point land. KD only had to take 1 3. Like, he was just getting everything and anything he wanted. It didn't matter who was guarding him. Sohan took a few turns, couldn't stop him. He had a couple misses early, but once KD found his rhythm, it was over. Devin couldn't stop him. He was too small. Keldon, same thing. It was just, it was whoever offense with Kevin Durant. And then, they got solid contributions from their role players. I know we like to trash on Ben Simmons, but he played pretty well tonight. Didn't play outside of himself. Got easy baskets, playmaking for others.
9
TJ
assists.
Warren looking like an absolute bucket. I know this is not supposed to be a Nets,
Look,
game,
in a loss like this, we just have to talk about him.
yeah, I mean, this is why the Spurs lost, is because they just have way too many solid players. And I know they got down to their real depth players. Defense kind of became an issue, and commitment on both ends became an issue, like with their young guys like Sharp and maybe Cam Thomas a couple times. But their main contributors, their starting five, Yuta Watanabe, Joe Harris, and TJ Warren, they were in sync and they were playing solid defense. Great in the transition game. Couldn't miss in the half court situations. And the Spurs, they just struggled, man. They came out with low energy, it felt like. And I know Keldon always plays with energy. So that, excluding him, I think he had 20 something points tonight.
He had 22, 7 for 13. Still his 3-point shot kind of reverted a little bit, but still 2 for 6. So not horrible.
And I can't even be mad at him for that because it really felt like there was nobody else along for the ride. Like, we couldn't get any offense from
Still
anybody
40%.
else. Yeah, still. And Devin, I know he had only 14 points tonight, but he's coming off of his injury too, so I'm sure he had to get, his rust.
I feel like
was
that's
there.
just the rust there, right, with the missed shots. He still made some super wet jumpers. Pause.
He will be back. I really think you can chalk this up to a low energy Spurs team and a really high caliber, talented Nets team who seems to have finally found their rhythm.
Absolutely. I think as much as, the Spurs are trying to go out there and believe they can win every game, with a group of young guys like this, they know what they were up against tonight.
Yeah.
You have a long travel to Brooklyn, I'm sure, yesterday, after playing a home game Saturday night. Hopefully, I'm pretty sure they have their own plane. Hopefully they didn't have to deal with any travel issues, get stuck in airports like a lot of people have been recently. But yeah, I feel like, you mentioned the energy. It kind of felt like the guys knew what was going to happen tonight. You saw that a lot from Sohan as well, too. Didn't make a ton of mistakes. Well, did make some mistakes. Didn't play horrible considering the situation, but still had 3 turnovers tonight. Didn't have the energy he usually does. Jakob as well is another example. There were some times where he just wasn't getting back on defense the way that he normally does. I think the guys just kind of knew the situation. And, the only way that you're going to have a chance to beat these guys is if you're just playing way over your head when you're this Spurs team. I mean, literally, I'm looking at their records. They're the opposite right now. Yeah. The Spurs are 12 and 25 and the Brooklyn Nets are 25 and 12. So, two completely opposite teams. Just want to talk about Kyrie a little bit, man. Not only did he have a putback, which when has that ever happened? Not saying he didn't have hops. You know what I mean? He had some crazy dunks at Duke and early in the year in Cleveland, or early in his career in Cleveland. But he just always goes off against the Spurs, man. It doesn't matter if we're at the bottom of the league like we are now, or like whenever he gave us like 55 when we were, still running with Timmy and Kawhi and the prime in the 2015, 2016 year. So, man, he just can't miss against us. I don't know what it is. 8 boards, didn't have any assists tonight, but a steal and a
He's a
block
scoring machine.
with 27 and 4 and 5. When you have Ben Simmons out there dishing 9 and KD dished 11, it doesn't really matter. He's just going to cook.
And Nick Claxton looked good too. He
played really
tonight.
well. I was really impressed by him.
Because a lot of the media and a lot of Nets fans that I know criticize him a lot for being kind of like Zach Collins. It doesn't really have the physical tools to be dominant down low and gets bullied a lot.
He's a slender guy.
He looked really good against. I mean, I know Jakob had 11 boards and was kind of looked a little bit like Moses Malone in that first half at times, but Zach Collins, Gorgie Jang, it didn't matter. Like he looked really solid as well. And Kyrie Irving going off against the Spurs every single time, I really think it comes down to respect because
I agree. That's what I think too.
He has always said nothing but glowing things about the San Antonio Spurs. He loves Coach Pop. They have a great relationship. They were joking around like in the second half when they were up by 30. Like they were really laughing together while Kyrie was playing a game and KD was bringing it up the court. So he loves Pop. He says Tony Parker was the hardest guy for him to guard. Go look it up on the interview. He said early in his career, TP was as good as anybody in the league, and it was so difficult to stop him from getting into the paint. And he's kind of patterned himself a little bit after TP as far as getting into the paint, being able to finish amongst the trees. So, and we were also his number 1 or number 2 destination when he wanted to leave Cleveland. I know we don't like to think about that era because I think that was when Kawhi was kind of about to go on his way out. Or that might have been his last year, like solidly playing. So he kind of wanted to be in San Antonio, be that point guard of the future for us. Didn't work out.
Kawhi, right?
Next to Kawhi, and I guess we would have had to have traded LaMarcus in that deal. So, but I would have been fine with that at the time. But yeah, he just goes off, and yeah, tough to watch.
4 for 5 tonight from 3, 11 for 14 overall. That's the story when Kyrie Irving plays the Spurs, whether it's 2016 or 2022. And I echo everything you said. I think it really just comes down to like every time he plays the Spurs, it's like he's like, I know I'm going to play a really. He probably feels like it's pure basketball. So and that's where revs Kyrie up. Jay Rich had a good shooting night tonight. Not the craziest game, but 1 of 2 from 3, 5 and 9 overall. Had 11 points, 4 boards and 3 assists. I know that doesn't seem like much, but he got 22 minutes tonight. That's his best game in a while. So like to see that from Jay Rich. Boosts up his trade stock. We were talking about it yesterday. If y'all want to see us go like super deep into some Spurs topics, if you missed our live stream yesterday, there's an hour worth of it. So go check that out for sure. Malachi also got 26 minutes tonight. I know a lot of that was in garbage time. Didn't shoot the greatest, but what were kind of your thoughts on him? Still kind of the same as usual, probably, but
yeah, pretty much the same. It felt like to me, no matter how many mistakes he made offensively or defensively, Pop was just going to leave him out there and let him run the show because it was a perfect learning experience for him going against 2 of the greatest players to ever play the game. And in that first 3 quarters, a really solid defensive effort from the Nets. So it was like trial by fire. I don't care. You're making, occasional lazy passes, picking up your dribble a little too often. He did that, bringing it up the court. He'd like hit the top of the key, pick up his dribble, and then realize, oh wait, they're not coming off the screen yet. And he'd be like, oh crap, what do I do? And then they'd swarm him, and he'd lose it. So those little things, those nuances, he'll figure it out. So it didn't look too pretty, but 4 for 10. He's still able to kind of get to his spot. But when you're getting guarded by a 7-foot Kevin Durant, it's hard to get your shot off as you normally would, especially when you don't have that much arc to begin with. But I'm sure he'll figure it out. It's just one of those ugly learning experiences that we've had to deal with throughout the year.
Yes, exactly. So the Spurs will stay in New York. So luckily they won't have to travel because they play the Knicks on Wednesday. Now, I think the key for that game, I'm going to go ahead and look at that right now to see if we have anything on injuries for that game yet. Doesn't look like we do. It just says it actually looks like everybody's going to be healthy because today Derrick Rose was just day-to-day for them. So that means they're going to have RJ Barrett. Looking at unless maybe, it says RJ Barrett is still out. So Actually, not him. My bad. Jalen Brunson will for
Is
sure
back.
be playing, which is still going to be a big difference considering it was a 7-point game last time. Obviously, the game's going to go different with him in general with him playing. But Jalen Brunson is averaging like close to 20. He's the reason the Knicks, still 20 and 18, but they're fourth. Well, no, fourth in the Atlantic Division, not fourth in the East, but still the reason they have a positive record right now, a big reason because of that is because of signing Jalen Brunson. So definitely Spurs are going to have to play better than they did tonight, or they'll catch another L on Wednesday.
Yeah, I think tonight JB and Julius Randle dropped 24 and 28 apiece in a win. So they're feeling it. They're ready to go. I would expect, though, Jude, a comeback game from Devin Vassell. I'm not sure that we'll win, but I would
That's a
expect
good
to see
point.
him get to that 30-point mark, if not more, because he's coming off of a really rusty game, and he was balling before that knee kind of took him out for a game or two. So I'd expect him to kind of take this box score that we had tonight personally and kind of come out firing tomorrow,
Wednesday, yeah. I'm not sure if he'll get to 30, but I think he will he's going to be in 20 to 30 point range. I could see it, but he's definitely going to have a bounce back game. I'm just being a little bit more conservative, I guess, but I think he'll get around 25 for sure. And I could see that.
I'm trying to rile up the fans, Jude.
Yes.
Rile them
up. Eric Pacino, we see you in here. We appreciate you. And M-Easy, as always, our man. And I'm with him a little bit on this one. It's time to bring up Blake Wesley. I agree at this point. When you just the turnovers, with him out, like Malachi needs to be a little bit more off the ball. I like him having these learning opportunities because I want him to be able to, take the ball up the court sometimes when we need it, or maybe, Blake Wesley gets his shot going a little bit. We've seen how much he's been shooting the ball. I'd love to run some sets, in motion or floppies or whatever, for Blake. So I want him to be able to handle it, to an extent. But the amount that he's handling it right now at this point, it's like we know what Blake's going to do in the G League, man. He had a bad shooting night the other night. He's going to get at least 20 or 15 every game.
Yeah, pretty much.
And it's going to be a different thing, I think, when he comes back. And I don't want to take too much from the 1 or 2 games he was here when he was, but it's like when you put him around that talent, from what we saw there, it's like that looked better than what we saw in the G League. Very small sample size, so put an asterisk next to that. But I'm with him easy there.
I am as well. Man, what was I going to say about Blake Wesley? I literally had something to say, and I forgot what I was going to say. We'll just say that I agree with you for now, and then
he's got that dog in him.
That is also true.
He's him.
He is him. He is him.
Steal of the draft.
Oh, I was gonna say Malachi.
I'm glad somehow that reminded you of whatever you were gonna say.
It worked. Malachi, in terms of him bringing up the ball in the future and learning how to be a better playmaker, I'm not comparing him to Manu, but Manu could bring the ball up the floor. He was an incredible passer, but he was a shooting guard, and he didn't often bring the ball up. Even on that second unit, it was still TP or Corey Joseph or George Hill or Patty Mills. He didn't do it every single time. He was still able to come off screen. So I would like Malachi in a similar role if we can get him. Obviously, Manu's on a different level than.
I get what you're saying, though.
Yeah,
he's
role.
not. He doesn't need to be bringing it up every time.
Yeah, exactly. Kind of like what we wanted Lonnie to be, but Lonnie could never figure it out with us for some reason. I don't know why, but that's what eventually we'd like him to get to.
Right. Any final thoughts on this blowout game, Ethan, and the Spurs moving forward?
Man, one thing. Rotations looked really weird tonight. We didn't put in Romeo until really late.
Eric agrees.
Yeah, fully healthy. Yeah, lost somebody. All true. Romeo didn't come in until really late. Don't know why. I know he had a bad shooting night the other night, but I still expected him to get more time. Doug only had 9 minutes early and then never played again. Jay Rich all of a sudden got 22 minutes, which is fine. But even when he was in, especially in that second half, he was playing with Roby, who suddenly got minutes, and Stanley Johnson, who also was a really late addition to the rotation. He didn't play in the first half, I don't think. But he's been playing great, so I don't know why he didn't, especially since he's an Energizer bunny and a solid defender. You'd think he would have had an opportunity to guard Kevin Durant or Kyrie when they were balling in that first
Mm-hmm.
half. They didn't. And then also Malachi was in that rotation, and I think Zach Collins. And then Zach was subbed out for Gorgie Jang. So weird lineups. I don't know what's going on.
15 minutes for Roby randomly.
Yeah. 9 for Stanley in the second half, 9 for Doug in the first half. It's just strange rotations overall. And I know we took our starters out pretty quick, but even still, in the
Yeah.
first half, you would expect it to be regularly scheduled programming, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
rotations are normal, and then in
Yeah.
that second half, okay, maybe we mix it up, change it up,
Right.
but it seemed off all the game. I don't know what's going on.
I think, you don't want to be too speculatory here, but Doug getting 9 minutes to me just screams what we were talking about yesterday. Like consistently through this, and even though Josh got 22 tonight, like for the past, like feels like since he's got hurt, since he's come back from his injury, he's played like feels
Sporadic,
like 9 minutes a game or like
yeah.
15 minutes here. Sometimes he doesn't play at all, and I think that just kind of ties in to those guys being probably at the trade deadline movable pieces. And maybe we don't even move them, but I think that the rotations, and maybe it's not this and I'm completely wrong, but it feels like to me the rotations are indicative of those guys being in trade talks right now.
I can see
but
that.
We'll see. We'll see. Maybe it's just we got Stanley, we got Roby, and Pop's like, we haven't given these guys minutes in a long time. Who cares? It's this season.
Yeah,
let's give them some run. They haven't had it in a while. It could just be that.
In other news, did you see that the Nets fan base clapped like extremely loudly and for Pop when his name was announced tonight?
Interesting.
Like
Very interesting.
way more so than normal.
Well, did you see the comment like before the game? Some reporter asked him if, and I'm sure it was a Nets reporter, if he would ever. Jeff G Spurs Zone tweeted about this. If y'all want to go check it out on his timeline, but they asked him if he'd ever consider coaching in New York, and he said he was a San Antonio guy. It's like, but come on, guys, bro, he's not coming to Brooklyn. Like
No.
maybe I'm a meme, and y'all can screen record this in a year, and he does something crazy, and I'm wrong, and that just is what it is. But like, he's been there for so long, dude. There's no way.
I agree.
Yeah.
He also probably in that same interview said that he will know when it's time to hang it up because they asked him if he was going to retire. He said, I'll know when I stop getting on guys in practice, yelling at guys in practice, and I'll hear a little voice in the back of my head. That's when I know I'll retire.
This ties into the Minnesota game at the beginning of the year. Once again,
Mm-hmm.
y'all go dig into that episode yesterday if you haven't checked it out, because there was a lot of deep Spurs, like big picture stuff that we haven't talked about going into 2023. But yeah, he was like, I'm a San Antonio guy. It's like, and I don't know if Pop, like even if he wanted to go to a better team, like say that's the realistic, I don't know if Brooklyn is the place that he wants to go. Like, I feel like he would go somewhere else. I just don't feel like New York's a speed, which is basically what he said in his answer.
Yeah, for sure.
Alrighty, y'all. Well, we appreciate you guys hanging out with us tonight. I know a little bit of a shorter post game, but in a 36-point loss, what else can you do? We'll be back this Wednesday in a more competitive game. Jalen Brunson back, Devin back. Should be a different matchup than the one we saw last time. Hopefully the Spurs can get another dub. And once again, if you missed it earlier, just want to send prayers to DeMar Hamlin before we leave. Really scary situation on Monday Night Football. But go Spurs go. If you like our content, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe below. We appreciate you guys. If you want to stay updated to all the stuff on the show or watch the show on Twitter, follow us on @SSPN on YT, @Jude McLaren, and @Ethan_Quintero to stay updated. We appreciate y'all. We'll catch you on the next.